Hello and welcome back to the cgbros. This is Brother Damien, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to create a sophisticated pirate's flag cloth simulation using Blender. Now let's take a look at the final render for this scene before we get going. Now I searched Google for pirate flag wallpaper and found this image called Razig's flag, and I used it as a texture for our flag. Now I've seen a lot of artists shortcut this kind of effect by creating a tattered flag texture with an alpha channel in Photoshop or something, and apply it as a texture to their plane. Then they simulate that, and then they call it a day. Now the problem with this approach is that it comes away looking really artificial because it doesn't have the sophisticated dynamic motion on the flag's tatters like this. Now don't get me wrong, that approach might be just fine for background flags, but it just won't hold up in mid and foreground effect shots. Now starting off with a clean scene, delete the default cube if you have one showing. Let's come up to the Add menu set, select Mesh, then Plane. Let's also scale it a bit because I want it to be flag-shaped or non-proportional like an actual flag, instead of proportionally square like our plane is here. Now our government buys and uses flags in several proportions, 2 to 3, 3 to 5, 5 to 8, and the official 10 to 19 for numerous civilian and military applications. But since I'm still a private citizen, I'll use my own judgment here and set it to 2 in the X and 3 in the Y. I'm also going to rotate the plane 90 degrees, so I'll hit the E key to get to my rotation transform and set my value to 90. Now what I'm also going to do here is increase the resolution of my mesh. I'm going to hit the Tab button to go into Edit mode, and click on the Subdivide button under Add Tools. Then I'll come down to the Subdivide attributes, and under the number of cuts, I'll enter in 10. Now I want to start shaping the pirate flag and giving it some character and detail. So I'm going to need to add a little bit more detail to the mesh. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the Faces icon and drag a selection box around all the faces of my flag that I want to subdivide, which is all of them. Then back under the Add Tools, hit the Subdivide button one more time. I might come in here and select some faces and delete them, creating holes and some battle damage on the flag. I'll hit Control and right mouse button to go into Lasso Select, and I might come over here to the edge and delete some faces here and there to create some interesting tatters at the flag's edge. Then, I might select the vertex icon and move the vertices around a bit to refine the shape and create a more torn look to the holes in the tatters. Now I'm not going to spend a lot of time fleshing this out to completion for two reasons. One, this is really not a modeling tutorial, and two, because I've actually already done it. Now if I click on my Layer 2 button down here in the Layers section, we can see the final flag mesh that we're going to use to simulate. Now come up to the Add Mesh Cube, because I want to have a collision mesh here to test my flag against. You can see this flag mesh has a lot more detail. Now I'll select the flag mesh and come over to the Navigator and over to the Physics button here on the end and enable Physics for Cloth. Now I always like to start with the presets and tweak from there, so under the presets, let's set it to Cotton. I'll go ahead and leave everything else at their defaults. Let's hit play and see what we've got. Now we can see that the flag mesh is responding to gravity and falling, but it's not colliding with our box, so let's go ahead and fix that right now. Now with our box selected, come over to the Navigator and over to the Physics button. Then select Enable Physics for Collision. Now let's hit play again and see what we've got. Now the flag mesh is properly colliding with our box. Great! Now I want the flag to fly also from a flagpole, so we'll need to create an attachment or a transform constraint to these vertices on the flag. Now I'll do this by selecting my object, hitting the Tab button to go into Edit mode, and dragging a selection around some of the vertices that I want to constrain here along the left side of our flag. With the vertices selected, hit the spacebar to bring up the quick menu and type in Vertex, and select Assign Vertex Group. Now come over to the Navigator and select the Object Data button and hit the plus under Vertex Groups to load the group we just created. Now I'll name this group Flag Pin. This sets up the constraint, but now we need to hook it up to the mesh. And be sure to hit the Assign button. Hit the Tab button to return to Object mode, and be sure the flag mesh is selected, and hit the Physics button on the Navigator. Under the Cloth pull-down, check Pinning, and hit the drop-down and select our Flag Pin Vertex group. Let's hit play and see what we've got. Now that's looking great. The flag is now constrained to our invisible pole and colliding with our box. Now I also want the flag to collide with itself as well. So I'll come down to the Cloth Collision pull-down and check the Self Collision checkbox. Alright, let's go ahead and stop it here. Please join me in part 2, where we'll make some further refinements to the settings on our cloth simulation. And I'll show you how to create and adjust wind and turbulence forces that will result in a more sophisticated cloth